What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing good. It's a beautiful day, and it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Man, I'm in a good mood today. I'm just pretending. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm struggling, but I'll be okay. So before we go, you know the drill. Please feel free to join us. It's always a big family. Always good to be with you. Spend some quality time together. Join us if it's not done yet. It's always a pleasure. And, do this. Okay, let's go. Today we're going to talk about Colombia. Very interesting. The vice president of Colombia, who's of African origin or African descent. She's a Colombian of black skin. In other words, she's one of those people whose ancestors were taken to the Caribbean and Southern America to go work as slaves and stuff like that. So Francia Maria Marquez has made it to become the first black vice president in the country since the creation of the country. Bravo! So Francia Marquez did not forget her ancestor. She decided to reconnect with the continent. She decided to take a trip to Africa throughout a couple of countries, including South Africa, Kenya, and more. Ethiopia, I think, also. So the goal was to reconnect with the continent and to learn, to exchange. She came up with some very interesting ideas. So she wants Swahili to be taught in Colombia in the curriculum in school. Swahili, yes, Swahili language. For those of you who don't know, Swahili is most spoken in Eastern Africa, particularly in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, and more. Swahili is a beautiful language. It is in fact the most spoken language in Africa. Yes, Africans need to come together. So we're going to see what's up. Let's watch.
Thank you very much. We made the decision as a government led by our president, Gustavo Petro, and myself to make a tour on the African continent to reconnect with this region. Of course, it is very important to us. We have historic ties with the African continent. I am a woman of African descent. The root of my ancestors are here on this continent. And I am here in a very historic context in order to create South-South cooperation ties between our countries, strengthen diplomatic, political, economic relations, and of course cultural relations.
Just like you see, so they say Swahili will be taught in Colombia school as a foreign language option. Colombia vice president has announced. She said the move will help Afro-Colombians reconnect with their roots. Great idea, isn't it? But it has faced an outcry among her opponents on the right. Obviously, they don't want you to do anything positive. I mean, first of all, it's a great idea trying to bring Swahili into Colombia, a country with 9% of its population being from African descent. I think it's great that you give them an opportunity to choose to either reconnect or not. Yeah, and maybe also other people that are not necessarily black to learn the language, which is a beautiful language. So Vice President Francia Marquez made the announcement last week upon her return from official visit to Ethiopia, Kenya, and South Africa. The accord signed will enable Colombian teachers to travel to Africa to teach Spanish, while teachers from African countries, notably Kenya, will have the opportunity to teach Swahili in state school in Colombia. Very interesting. Good exchange, right? You send your teachers to come to Africa, teach Spanish. Good. Well, not that we need it, but yeah, good. And obviously, we have to exchange something. And African nations sends you African teachers to go teach Swahili. Beautiful. So they say it will be offered to Colombians of African origin and to anyone who would like to learn the language. This is important for reconnecting with roots and rebuilding historical memory. But the announcement met fierce criticism from Marquez's opponent on the right. Obviously, they say his political opponents say, why do you want to bring Swahili to Colombia? We don't need Swahili. Look at the distance between Colombia and Africa. We don't need Swahili here. Why don't we do American or let's do English instead of Swahili? It's more beneficial. But they insisted to say, you know what? You cannot force English to everybody. Swahili would make more sense for the 9% of population of Colombia than English would. Obviously, historically, when a child has been taken away from his family, it doesn't matter how long he's been gone. It's going to come a time where he's going to want to go back to where he came from, okay? Many children that have been born of a father that's gone, usually when they grow up, they want to go see their father, right? So where's my dad? He's still alive. Yeah, if your dad is still alive, you're going to go try to find him, at least see him face to face, right? So this is exactly what's happening, I feel, on a psychological level. She's facing a lot of criticism. She's a young 40-year-old woman, vice president of a country far away, but she acknowledges Africa in the biggest manner and facing a lot of criticism. They say the vice president's first official African tour was described by the right-wing commentators as expensive safari. She's going to do an expensive safari, with conservative politicians demanding to know how much it had cost to taxpayers. Interesting, eh? Now she responded saying, I've been to Europe and the United States before, and nobody asked how much I had spent. She retorted, nobody asked. So when you travel to Europe, they don't ask you how much you spent. When you go to Canada, the USA, it's fine. They don't ask you anything. But when you go to Africa, they want to know how much money that cost you on a safari. Some question why Swahili? Why Swahili is the language? Suggesting English was a better option. Mwekassa says Swahili because it's the third most spoken language in Africa, with over 2 million speakers. I thought it was the first, right? Let's double check. I think Swahili is the first most spoken language in Africa. Let's see. Okay, these people are lying. It's the first most spoken language in Africa. Swahili is the first most spoken language in Africa. Lots of people speak Swahili from many other countries. I mean, if you are from Congo, you can go to Tanzania. You don't need to speak English. Actually, many Tanzanians don't speak English at all. Even those who can speak English, they don't like speaking in English. And that's beautiful. I like that even from the former president, Magufuli, he spoke Swahili. He was a proud person. He had the dignity. He never traveled to Europe or the United States for no reason. During his term, his 5-year term, he rebuilt his country with pride, with money from the taxpayers. Never went to a World Bank or IMF begging for money like most other African countries do. Yeah, amazing, tremendously great president. Spoke Swahili all the time. So Burundi is the same. You go to Burundi, you speak Swahili, but they're going to listen to you. You're going to talk to each other. You go to Rwanda, a lot of people speak Swahili in Rwanda. You go to Uganda, a lot of people as well speak Swahili, but notably people in the military. So it's very, very interesting. Kenya, Tanzania, Congo, all these people. Just imagine if Africa had to build, its own language. The reason why you can hear me today is because English. That's the only reason why I can speak. I mean, I can speak Swahili, but the reason why you're watching me today is because it's English, and English unites us. As sad as it is sad that English unites us. And that's the fruit of colonization. Okay, it should be an African language. Now, which African language? Non-African language is better than the other. Absolutely not. But I would suggest Swahili because it's the most spoken language already. So the vice president says she wants to strengthen South-South cooperation with African countries. And I think this is really beautiful to see and very encouraging. Swahili has to be spoken throughout Africa. Africans need to adopt and love that language. Make it available. I believe South Africa has already implemented a system where Swahili will be taught in school as an option. I think it's great. We do our best to learn foreign languages, languages from colonizers. And some of us even boost thinking they're more intelligent because they pronounce English like a British or like an American. They feel like they are better than everybody. A lot of people think by speaking English like a Londoner, like an English person, makes you more intelligent. Same for the French. It's colonization. You see French-speaking people, the one that speaks very little accent, like foreign accent, is perceived like an intelligent guy in Africa. Yes. And some of these guys, they just try to correct your pronunciation to feel above you. It's mind-boggling. Any language can be learned with effort. I learned English after I was already an adult. I still remember the day I could not speak a word of English. And people were laughing at me. I'll never forget that. But I remember saying to them, give me 3 months. We're going to see if you're going to laugh at me like that anymore. In fact, it was a guy long time ago in an English-speaking African country. I went to a space where there was a lovely lady in the neighbor's yard. She looked at me trying to say hi, but I couldn't reply because I knew no word of English. So the guy that was with me from my country, that was a foreigner too, started laughing at me, mocking me. You don't understand what he's saying. I'm like, dude. So later on, I discovered that he was interested in the girl. He did everything he could so he could get me out of the market. I asked him, what did she say? Tell me. He refused to tell me. So I said to him, dude, give me 3 months. So again, fellas, I think it's a beautiful thing that this lady that need to be encouraged, Madame Marquez, 40 years old, beautiful lady, African descent, African skin, coming to Africa to reconnect. And I think one of the best way to do is by adopting Swahili as a language. Let me know how you feel about this. Is Swahili the language that we all need, whether you're African in the continent or African descent in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, Jambo or Jamaica, or African American who recognize themselves as African? Is this a language that should be adopted by all of us so we can very slowly start building ourselves? Let me know your comment, please. God bless.